Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and today Apple released iOS 26.6 Beta 2. iOS 26.6 Beta 2 is available to developers, and iOS 26.6 Public Beta 2 should be out by the time you're watching this video or later this week, but it's usually within 24 hours or so. Now, iOS 26.6 is supported on all iOS 26 supported devices, so whether it's the beta you're testing out, the developer beta, or the public version once it's available, you'll be able to install it on a device that currently supports iOS 26. However, if you're running iOS 27 Beta 1, you won't see the update as you're on a newer version. The only way to install iOS 26.6 Beta 2 is use a computer and then downgrade from 27 to 26.6. So I probably wouldn't do that at this point if you're already on iOS 27 betas. Now, this came in at a very large 16.68 gigabytes on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. However, I suspect this number is incorrect, just like it was with Beta 1. It downloaded incredibly fast and installed pretty fast as well, and some people were seeing it much smaller, around 3 gigabytes or smaller. So I think the number is incorrect and it's much smaller, but if it did need to reinstall the whole OS, it would have been much bigger and probably taken a lot more time. Now, along with this, Apple also released iPadOS 26.6 Beta 2, macOS 26.6 Beta 2, tvOS and HomePodOS 26.6 Beta 2, along with watchOS 26.6 Beta 2, and then visionOS 26.6 Beta 2. There's also some updates for macOS 15 and macOS 14 versions to RC2. Now, as far as the overall update and what's in it, let's go ahead and take a look at the build number, and then we'll talk about what's new. So we'll go into Settings, then we'll go to General, and then Software Update. Wait for it to load, tap on More Details, and then we'll tap on the version number. And as you can see, the build number is 23G5043D. And based off of this, we'll probably have another beta or two before we get the final version. Now, as far as the modem update, there is no modem update in iOS 26.6 Beta 2 coming from Beta 1, no change there. And as far as new features, well, there's no visible new features, but it appears Apple is working a lot as far as what's behind the scenes. Just like they announced with iOS 27, it seems like they've done a lot with this OS as far as refinement goes. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but things such as end-to-end encryption is still in beta in this update. And as far as in the code, there's a few things to mention as well. For example, just like Beta 1, when you try and enter in contacts and then maybe you block a contact. So for example, if we go into contacts here, you'll see we have Apple, but if we scroll to the bottom and then block that contact or block the contact within your settings, you may have a limit as to how many you can block. Some people have said the block is about 3,000 contacts. Some have said it's more, but at this point it appears there's a limit. And once you hit that limit, it will then give you a little message that you've hit that limit. Why they don't increase it, I'm not sure. Maybe it has to do with memory, but we'll have to wait and see if they change that. The other feature that's in the works is the ability for iPhone to sense if someone quickly grabs your phone in an attempt to steal it. It will then auto lock. However, I see no option for this yet. So again, if we go back into settings here, let's swipe home, go back into settings. And then if we go into privacy and security, this is where I would expect it to be, down at the bottom where we have stolen device protection. This is something that hopefully will help if someone tries to grab your phone quickly. Hopefully it will just auto lock right away. Of course, we'll have to see if we can test this out once the feature is available, but it looks like it's something that could be included in this update. As far as anything else, the only other thing I found, other than the incredible smoothness we'll talk about in a moment, is a new splash screen when you open the Games app. It says recently downloaded and achievements and score updates. So this isn't really a new splash screen, but it is something that was new, at least in Beta 2 for me. As far as bugs and bug fixes, well, there's a couple things worth mentioning. They fixed an issue where a region was previously selected and how it would be applied, and they've also fixed a respring bug. So what I mean by that is if we go here, in the previous update, if we tap on a widget, tap out, tap the dots at the bottom, it would respring the phone. It looks like this has been resolved. I haven't been able to duplicate it, and it looks like they've finally fixed it. So typically I would try the weather widget that we have here, but usually the smaller size widget that we have would cause it to respring if you tapped it and then tapped the dot. So I'm glad to see they finally fixed that. And then so far I haven't heard any complaints of CarPlay. So again, we'll have to see if this is resolved. It certainly seems better in iOS 27. And then of course I have to mention the wallpaper bug. So if we scroll down here, you'll see the wallpaper is nice and saturated. Scroll home. It looks like it almost desaturates a little bit and then resaturates, but you'll see right here around the orange, it looks okay to me. So it's something that may be fixed. It's hard to say. However, I thought it was fixed in iOS 27 for sure. Some people say otherwise, but again, we'll have to wait and see as it's still early days with iOS 27. As far as other bugs, well, Apple still hasn't updated their release notes here, but you'll see in the public-facing release notes, it says you have a known issue for stickers, where you might be unable to create new stickers or see existing stickers when sticker data becomes corrupted. This prevents you from using stickers, and the issue can persist to other devices when synced via iCloud. So that's a known issue. Hopefully it's resolved in this beta, but again, they haven't updated the beta notes for beta 2 just yet. As far as any other updates, well, we would expect this to include security updates, but Apple typically doesn't update those until it's released to the public. So you'll see we had iOS 26.5.1 prior to this, and that's where we'll see this. So we'll see this updated typically after it releases to the public within a few hours or so. Now, as far as any other updates, of course, iOS 27 is what everyone's talking about, so that's pretty much the big update right now. No new updates since then other than to apps to sort of support that with the developer app, for example. There's a splash screen here, and we'll just go into here and you'll see what it looks like. But basically WWDC highlights and everything new with iOS 27, Dub Daily, Day 5. They did a great job this year covering all of the different features, changes, answering questions, having different daily sessions. There's some great interviews online, lots of good coverage of WWDC this year, along with all of the newest features. So of course, we'll talk about that more in future updates. Now, when it comes to releases, well, it looks like we're going to get an iOS 26.5.2 before iOS 26.6. I suspected that some time ago. We saw something like this last year as well, but according to Mac Rumors, they're now seeing it in their analytics. So I would expect it soon, maybe this week or next. We don't really have a specific date, but I would suspect that will be fairly soon, within maybe the next week or so. Also, I don't expect an update this week with iOS 27, but next week we could see iOS 26.6 Beta 3 and also iOS 27 Beta 2. iOS 27 Beta 2 I would expect to be out around the 22nd or so, and then maybe Tuesday we'll see Beta 2 of iOS 26.6, but we just don't know at this point. Then, of course, we'll have another beta, maybe in a couple weeks after that, with a public beta in early July, and then both betas, of course, maybe iOS 26.6 releasing to the public sometime in July, and then more betas throughout the summer until we reach September, where we typically have the next iPhone launch, and iOS 27 should launch to the public. So that's typically what we expect here. Now, if you're wondering if you should install iOS 26.6 Beta 2, if you're on iOS 26.6 Beta 1, absolutely. In fact, I would say it's pretty good at this point. Many people have said that iOS 26.6 Beta 1 is better than iOS 26.5 or iOS 26.5.1. So far, it certainly seems to be the case on this update. You may have already noticed through the video, things are nice and smooth, unlocking here. So we'll unlock, swipe over, and it's actually maintaining its speed just like iOS 27 does. So it looks like they've made some under the hood changes, and I'll show you that with Geekbench in a moment, how it definitely reflects that. Scrolling is smooth and fast, things like ProMotion. If we go back home here, you'll see how fast everything swipes back. Usually this would stutter. Now it may stutter after a few days, but so far it's actually doing quite well that way. When it comes to overall heat, well, surprisingly for this update, it's incredibly cool at this point. The phone is barely warm. In fact, let me show you that really quickly. So you'll see with the thermal camera, the actual heat signature off the phone, it's nice and cool. It's around 30 degrees Celsius, maybe 31 at most. So it's staying nice and cool. Of course, we're not running benchmarks at this time, but I did run them earlier. But we'll take a look at those in a moment. First, let's take a look at battery. Now, battery on this device, this is not my main device. I was using it on my main device with iOS 26.6 Beta 1, but then I switched to iOS 27 Beta 1. But battery life was okay. It was getting me 2 or 3 hours using 50% of the battery. And on this device, if we take a look at battery here, we'll go to battery and then battery health. Again, this is not my main device, but under battery health, I have 100% capacity with just 22 cycles. If we take a look at someone else's battery, this is on an iPhone 17 Pro Max. Thanks to Connor for sending this in. He had 5 hours and 15 minutes of screen active time, 2 hours and 44 minutes of screen idle time, and used 55% of the battery. So pretty good, especially compared to iOS 26.5.1 for them. So as far as the overall update, it looks like this is much better compared to previous versions of iOS 26, and this is basically what we saw last year with iOS 18. Once we got to iOS 18.6, most of the bugs were gone, and things were much more refined. When it comes to benchmarks, this is where I was the most impressed. I ran this after installing the update, which typically means you're going to get lower benchmark scores as it's processing, but I got the highest benchmark scores I've ever seen. 3,904 for single core, 10,037 for multi-core. So this is pretty great. iOS 26.6 betas is really working quite fine. That's the highest I've seen, like I said. And so with smoothness and everything else, I'm sure it may stutter over time, but it seems like it's much, much better this time around. So that's everything with iOS 26.6 beta 2. Not a very exciting update, but that's typical this time of year. Of course, I like to see stability, but let me know how it's going for you if you've installed it. And of course, iOS 27 seems to fix many of the issues we've had, but this looks like it's a good update so far. Of course, let me know how it's going for you in the comments below, and I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.